am speaking with State Senator Bruce Tarr, as I do every week, and you have a very busy week last and this one, Senator. Tell us what's going on.
Well, we do, Heather. This is usually one of the most intense seasons in the legislative calendar is when we're constructing a budget for the fiscal year. And this year, we're actually several months late doing that. And state government has been operating on interim budgets, which are essentially budgets that are intended to keep state government going. And they're based on the spending levels in the prior year's budget. So we have been waiting to see if the federal government is going to do a stimulus package that might provide us with additional resources. And we've also been trying to gauge the tax revenue impact of the pandemic. At this point, we need to move forward and we need to do something. And so we are putting together a budget for the remaining months of the fiscal year, basically for December through next July. And the House last week took up its version of that budget. And this is a situation, Heather, where usually you have many, many amendments. In the House, they usually have somewhere order of magnitude 12, 14, 1,500 amendments. This year, last week, they took up a budget that had about 777 amendments. And so the members have really pared back what they're trying to accomplish in the budget. And that's because right now there has been, up until now, pretty much an agreement in principle to try to not work on policy outside of spending and COVID-19. And so you can see that as well in the Senate, where usually we would have upwards of 1,000 amendments, and this year we're dealing with about 473. So it's a much reduced number of amendments. Unfortunately, we still are in a mixed situation with regard to whether or not we're going to take up policy. And my advice has been not to take up policy and that we continue with that agreement that we've had so that we get done absolutely what we need to get done. And there'll be a time for policy change later. And I say that as someone who is usually the principal filer of those policy amendments as the leader of the minority party. But I think in this case, we really should keep focused on just the absolute substance of the budget. And to get into the specifics of that, our budget is very similar to the budget the House presented and is not a wide divergence from the revised budget that Governor Baker presented. So basically, both budgets, the House and the Senate, rely on about $1.5 billion coming out of the stabilization fund. It has about $3.5 billion, so that will leave us resources for the future because we think that fiscal year 2022, which actually begins next July, and which we need to begin planning for as soon as the new year comes, could be more challenging than this year. We hope it won't be, but we need to anticipate that it might. But also, this budget goes up, and the House budget is very similar. It increases spending by about $2.4 billion over last year. And the primary reason for that, because it may seem counterintuitive, because you'd say, well, we have decreasing revenues, and both the House and the Senate budgets are based on a loss of about $3.55 or $3.6 billion. So you'd say, well, why is the budget increasing? And the main reason is the mass health account, because of all the additional people that have needed mass health because of the pandemic. We can't say no to them. We have to support them. And so that's the primary reason the budget is actually going up to account for spending on mass health. So that's a mouthful, but that's sort of where we're at.
Yeah. So when you say spending is down, so tax revenue is down by, like, you use the number, I'll say 6%. That's what I read. Is that right?
Yeah, I haven't calculated the percentage, to be honest, but it's about $3.5 billion. And that's a projection. It's based on the most recent series of predictions that we got from our budgetary experts. We had a panel convened, and they indicated that the loss would be somewhere between $2 billion and $5 billion. So the 3.55 is in the middle of that range of projections.
So the House passed their budget bill last Thursday, and you guys are working on it this week, right?
Correct. So we are scheduled to begin debate on the budget at 10 a.m. On Tuesday morning. Amendments needed to be filed by 10 p.m. on Friday night. So all the amendments that are going to be filed have been filed. but there's still the opportunity to redraft those amendments and further amend them. So the process has a long, long way to go. But in many respects, the universe of amendments has been defined. I expect that we will probably go through Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the pace that we're able to go at. And that pace is going to be largely affected by the fact that we're in many, many cases operating remotely. So most legislators will not be at the State House, and we'll really feel that during the budget debate, because oftentimes when you debate the budget, you convene in small groups and try to work out differences between amendments and try to come up with some unified approaches. And I'm sure we'll still attempt that, but it's much harder when everybody's not in the same building.
Mm. So I just want to make one reference to the fact that 3 House members have been tested positive for COVID and 3 staffers, right?
They have, and in fact, there's ongoing testing right now with regard to House members, and over the weekend, the House was sanitized, several of the offices where those members had been, because again, they were debating the budget, so they were present at a time when they most normally wouldn't normally be right now. And in the Senate, we've had some offices sanitized, and we've had some testing. And as of my conversation with the Senate president quite recently, it appears that we are going to do some rapid testing before we take up the budget. But most Senate members will not be present at the State House. I will be, and a select few of my staff will be, but most members will not be.
Okay, and just to make it clear, so that was not the case with the House when they took up the budget? Were they all present?
They weren't. In fact, I was here while they were debating the budget, and there weren't a lot of members that were here, but there were more than have been because of the intensity of the budget. So there were some staff that were in the building, and there were some members that generally have not been in the building for the last several months.
And you anticipate getting, or everyone is talking about getting this budget to the governor's desk by Thanksgiving. Is that right?
That's the hope. So no matter what we do, we will not pass a completely symmetrical budget to the House. There will be some differences, and those differences will need to be reconciled. So we'll likely appoint a conference committee very quickly, 3 members of the House, 3 members of the Senate. I will appoint one of those members to the conference committee, and we'll try to work out our differences fairly quickly. And the fact that there aren't significant differences between the 2 budgets, at least as of right now, because we haven't taken ours up yet, should make that conference committee go much more quickly than it usually does.
Okay. Are you allowed to clue us into where you think the friction might lie?
Well, I think that we're probably going to see some discussion about things like gaming and whether we should have sports betting in Massachusetts. I think we'll probably have some differences about how we spend some of the money to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. There are a lot of reasonable ways to do that. I think we may take some different approaches. But I think the one hallmark of this particular budget cycle is going to be how little difference there is between the 2 documents. Now, one thing that's important is that members have they earmarked the House budget, and we will likely earmark the Senate budget with some local priorities. So for instance, for me, the Cape Ann, or the Open Door rather, food pantry that serves Cape Ann is a priority. They've had a difficult time. We're seeing them continue to march forward and help people. I'd like to be able to give them some additional state support. For some of our municipalities, connectivity is an issue, making sure that there's internet access, both for kids that are learning remotely and also for others that are using telemedicine or would like to use telemedicine. So we all have various priorities, and we'll try to accommodate some of those. And one of the tasks that will be before the conference committee is to reconcile all those different priorities that people put in the budget at the local level. And in our area, the good news is that there is a tremendous partnership between legislators. And so we're in constant conversation with Representative Ferranti, Representative Hill, talking about things they've added to the budget. I've been talking to them about things I'd like to add to the budget. And we really work together to try to maximize the benefit to the people that we represent. So oftentimes we won't file for the same thing, because there's a possibility we could get all of the things. So if we file the same thing, we've restricted ourselves. So there's a back and forth in it. And I would suggest that people in our region really benefit from that collaboration that we have.
That's such a great story. Thank you for that collaboration.
Well, it's my belief is that's why we're here, is to try to work together and address problems. It doesn't mean that we always agree, but we always need to find a way forward. And I'm happy to be a part of that and appreciate your comment.
Thank you. So we hope to talk to you next week. Perhaps there'll be more news about this budget then.
There will be, and next week I will also have some more news on a much lighter note about Gloucester's Christmas tree at Kent Circle. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I would predict that by the end of the week, there will be a Christmas tree in Gloucester from the citizens of Shelburne, Nova Scotia, our sister city, and would love to tell you the story behind that, but a lot of behind the scenes work going on with our office and the Canadian consulate. And of course, my brother Ringo is at the center of it all. And so I think we'll have a very positive story for you the next time we talk.
Oh, that's great. Well, good luck with all this week, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.
Thank you. I very much look forward to that as well, and hope you have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.